Out of the newest releases, Gladiator Beast, of course, was the first one to catch my eye. I've always liked Gladiator Beast. I've made videos on this deck in the past, and in particular in Duel Links, it was a pretty big favorite of mine, and many other players as well. So we've got a couple of new Gladiator Beast cards, and all of the new cards are crazy powerful. They're really driving the deck in the right direction, which is amazing. It feels, it's a lot kind of like Material Reactor in that it feels incomplete still, but the new cards are phenomenal, and a lot of the older cards are also really good as well, but we're just missing the middle ground. So for example, right, we have really good extenders now in the form of Justel, which is awesome. We have the Flavian, which is incredible. So these really good new sort of consistency tools and tools to help you search and summon and extend, which the deck didn't have before, which is amazing. And then it's taking advantage of some of the deck's old really good cards in the form of Proving Ground and Comeback and things, which are also really powerful cards. So there's definitely a really healthy mix of cards here. The primary issue the Gladiator Beast faces is that a lot of the other main deck names really aren't that great, and you kind of have to play almost like a critical mass of Gladiator Beast names in order to make the deck work. So the deck is a vast improvement over what it was. It's a blast to play. I've got a bunch of replays here showing off some of the combos, some of the gameplay back and forth. It's not going to carry you to Master 1 on its back with no effort. It is definitely not a top tier deck, but it is an absolute blast to play. And like I said, if you're a fan of Gladiator Beast, you're going to love the new cards. If you've never played Gladiator Beast before, never been a better time, why not get in on it? But the deck's missing just a little bit extra to take it over the edge. We've also got the new Test Bar as well, which is, it's a really powerful card in theory. I'm not a huge fan of how it works in a lot of the situation. It's a win more card by the loosest possible definition. I'll talk more about all that at the end of the video. First of all, I'm going to jump into some replays. I'm going to show you how the deck works. I'm going to go through some sort of plays and combos and back and forth and interaction and blah blah blah. So we're going to do all of that first of all, so you actually know what the hell I'm talking about. And then at the end, I'm going to go through the list card for card. I'm going to talk about some of the decisions we made when we were deck building. I'm going to talk about what I think the deck does really well and what I think maybe the deck could work on a little bit, either going forward if any new generic support releases, or indeed any future Gladiator Beast cards. So I'm not going to ramble too much at the beginning. Of course, if you're interested in catching more content just like this, make sure you're subscribed and you like this video to help it get out to even more people. Let's get into the video. These first couple of replays are really going to show off the deck in action. So we're going to start off with Rescue Cat, which is by far your best starter card. We're going to summon out a couple of copies of Justel and then link those two cards off into the new Gladiator Beast, Darios. Darios then on summon's going to bring back a Gladiator Beast from the graveyard, triggering off the effect of Justel. Then I search our deck for Gladiator Rejection. We're going to activate Rejection, which makes us untargetable, and it's got an additional effect we're going to use in a little bit. But first of all, we're going to link our two monsters off into Test Panther. Test Panther then searches an additional Gladiator Beast card. You don't normally grab War Chariot here, but you typically grab Comeback to continue your combo. If you already have Comeback, you would grab Flavian, which we also already had. So we decided to grab Chariot because it's a really good counter trap. Now we're going to bring back the Darios just so we can shuffle the Darios back into the extra deck to summon out Noxious. That's going to trigger not only Noxious's effect, but also the effect of Rejection. Rejection will summon out a Gladiator Beast with a type different to all of the ones we control, being the Vespasius. Noxious then going to mill a monster to the graveyard, going to send Atriox, so we can then Contact Fuse into the Tamer, which will use its effect. This guy, by the way, is a large part of what makes this deck really powerful. He can special summon out Gladiator Beast fusion monsters, ignoring their summoning conditions as a soft once per turn. So this guy is really good. We're going to bring out the Domitianus, which is just an incredibly powerful monster. 3500 attack, monster negate and destroy, controls attack targets, all of that good stuff. Now we're going to summon out two monsters from our hand as well. We're going to go Darius, bringing back another copy of Justel, linking two into the Dragasis, whatever his name is. We're going to go into another Darios here, and the only reason we go into another Darios is not only is this card, in my opinion, better in terms of its passive protection than the other Link 2, but we're freeing up space as well as putting more names in graveyard so we can Contact Fuse into the Claudius. The Claudius is the brand new fusion, fusing 5 Gladiator beasts together, and the field spell is going to set us up another trap card. So this board is pretty insane. We've got a monster negate, we've got pop up to, what is this, 4 cards, potentially 5 depending on your sequencing. We have the Domitianus, which is a monster negate. Then we have the Claudius, which can special summon a Gladiator Beast Fusion monster from your extra deck, which is either going to be the Heraclinos if you have cards in hand to discard, or if you don't have anything in hand, or if indeed it's just more advantageous, the Geyserus, which will on-summon pop 2 cards. So quite a lot of interruption, very, very flexible board as well. Our opponent is going to be going for Gold Sarcophagus. I'm sure it comes as no surprise that this is a branded player. We've been seeing a shitload of branded on the ladder. We believe we're playing around Diamond 3 when we were recording these. So they're going to go for Alibur, the Jester of Despia. Alibur then going to get searched in the deck for Branded and High Spirits. We're going to speed this up just a little bit. Branded and High Spirits, revealing and dropping Titaniclad and the Saronir to grab Springan's Kit. Now, we did allow the Alibur to resolve. Now, the Saronir is going to mill out the Lebellion. We're sort of timing our interruption here pretty well. Branded is actually quite a rough matchup for us because they're primarily spell and trap card based. We are going to go Domitianus on the Kit. I kind of figured that if he doesn't have the ability to grab Branded Lost now, we don't want him using Kit to grab Branded Lost. He is going to go for the Branded Fusion here, which is absolutely a-okay, because we still have the Chariot in order to negate whatever he would end up fusion summoning. So the Chariot here being able to negate the Albion, which is why I was very comfortable in leaving my negates for the Kit. Negating the Kit just prevented him from grabbing Branded Lost. Into the end phase, Bro's got nothing. He can't even swing in the Artes Panther or anything because of Domitianus. He's going to go to Fallen of Albaz here, dropping a card. We're going to go Claudius, then chaining to the Claudius the Gladiator Beast Charge, which will pop up to as many cards as many of his face-up cards as possible, up to the number of Gladiator Beasts we control. He's going to go Droplet to negate our Claudius here, which is ultimately kind of pointless at this stage because, sure, we don't get Geyserus, but that's fine. You don't have anything to pop off of the Geyserus anyway. They're going to go Branded in Red here, and I believe he just starts flailing a little bit. He goes Branded in Red. He's going to try and grab back Fallen of Albaz. He's just kind of clicking buttons right now. He knows he's cooked. He's going to go into Rindrun the Striking Dragon, which is technically Interruption, which is nice for him. Recourier and the Golden Sword Soul. This deck, every time I go against Branded and you think you've whittled down your opponent's resources, and this is like magical to me, they just always have something more, something extra, something that's going to negate or send or search. This is the end phase, and he has resolved like 3 or 4 separate chains of cards. That's incredible. But yeah, that's fine. I believe, yeah, our opponent doesn't even let us go in for the double battle phase or anything like that. He just scoops it up like a bitch. But there you go. That's pretty much the best of the best. That's what the deck likes to do. There's not a lot of variation in terms of what the deck does because a lot of the main deck names in terms of the actual Gladiator beasts really aren't that good. So the routes and the combos are typically relatively linear because you're kind of relying on the same small number of cards to actually get you moving. The deck has a ton of search power and a ton of consistency, and that's all well and good, but it doesn't have things that are worth searching or combos that are worth being consistent, right? Outside of like Rescue Cat, which is a non-searchable card, funnily enough. But anyways, let's get into some more replays and hopefully you'll see what I mean. Already getting into our second replay here. We're going to be going second into a True Draco deck. Now, this is an interesting game. Definitely a bit of a momentum swing here. We're going to go into the True Draco Heritage. It's going to draw an extra card. It's whatever. Very meek board from our opponent is what we'll say. We've got a relatively decent hand. We're going to go for Proving Grounds. I say relatively decent. It's actually really good. Except we're missing a name. So Proving Grounds resolving here gets us the extra name, and now suddenly we can play through an interruption. Whereas if you notice, the hand before this was not able to do so. And that is a common theme. You'll notice that once the combo gets going, it's going. And a lot of these steps you're about to see here are very much the same ones you just saw in the last replay. Once the combo gets off the ground and starts moving, it's typically fairly good and relatively resilient. But the earliest stages of the combos, like the first play or maybe the second play, the deck is incredibly susceptible to interruption. But if you can get past that, then you're golden, right? We're going to go Ignis Heat here. Ignis Heat reacting to Flavian being activated. It's going to play Disciples onto the field, which he's just going to use to try and net additional advantage. We're going to go Flavian, dropping the additional rescue cat to grab Sagittarius. Now we're going to go for Giselle. Giselle's going to summon itself, and the Etriox. They're going to go for Lose One Turn. Lose One Turn is a massively powerful card here. I believe I kind of flail around trying to play around it to some extent here. We're going to go for the Darios. Of course, Darios is negated, so it doesn't matter. We're going to summon a Testbar. Testbar luckily tributes itself as cost whenever it uses its effects. We're able to summon out 2 additional Gladiator Beasts from the deck. And the reason we're trying to put as many monsters on the field as possible with different names is because we're trying to set up a powerful Gladiator Beast charge. So there we go. We now have 4 Gladiator Beast names on the field, and they're all pretty damn powerful. We also have the Charge and the Chariot, which means that we're in a relatively decent spot. On top of that, of course, we do have the Darios providing us with protection during the battle phase and such as well. So now we're going to go Charge. We're destroying up to 4 cards our opponent controls, including that pesky Lose One Turn trap card, which was a real big pain on our ass there on turn 1. We're going to clear out the Dragonic Diagram as well upon activation, which means it doesn't resolve. Guy Zero is going to come out. We're going to clean up a lot of these spell cards as well. We do not want him getting all of this additional advantage. It does mean he's going to pop our back row, but given the fact that we're up against True Draco here, I'm not losing sleep over not having my back row here. It's not the biggest deal in the world. That's totally fine. Draws into Pot of Duality, which definitely does suck. We see the Power Sink Stone there on top of his deck, but he chooses not to grab it. Power Sink Stone meaning he's almost certainly going to be playing more stun cards. Going for another copy of the spell, going to Pot of Greed, swinging into our Darios. Darios protects all of our Gladiator Beasts from battle destruction, so it makes no difference to us whatsoever. And we swung that pretty well. So the guy Xeris and the Charge really helped break that board quite effectively. We're going to go into the big man, just to get hit with a second copy of Lose One Turn that he drew into at the end of his turn there off of that Pot of Greed. Really, really big pain in the ass. We sort of ate up all of our gas getting rid of it the first time. I don't even know if we have a way to get rid of it twice. We're going to swing in. We're going to deal as much damage as we possibly can here. I do swing with the wrong monster initially, but whatever. We're going to bring out Vespasius and Augustus, just trying to bolster our board as much as we possibly can. But we are in a tough spot. Luckily, our opponent has yet to swing control, but that's all about to change. They're going to bring back the Dynamite Wrestler so they can go into Masterpiece. And Masterpiece, now being immune to both monster effects and trap cards, utilizing the effect of the True King's Return to pop our biggest monster. And also getting rid of our Vespasius to remove our attack boost. Then 1250 over our Darios is fine. We still can't be destroyed by battle, but he is whittling us down. And ultimately, the ability for this Masterpiece to pop one of our cards once per turn, while we're unable to generate any significant amount of momentum due to Lose One Turn, is really putting us on the back foot here. We're suddenly in a position to where not only are we not able to move forward, we now actively having a force pushing us backwards, which we didn't have before. Beforehand, when we were just dealing with being stalled, it was fine because we could eventually ramp up our gas. But right now, we have a massive threat in the form of Masterpiece pushing back against us at all times here. I am going to go for the Max C on the activation of the True King's Return just to get even a singular extra card that might be useful, but unfortunately Masterpiece is immune to trap cards, so even Imperm isn't of any use whatsoever, even if we had it on the field. Gonna go for the Masterpiece again, popping the Tamer, and you'll notice he's just whittling us down. All of our resources slowly but surely dwindling. 25 to the face. We're not left with a lot of life points here, so we're just going to have to see what we draw off the top of the deck, and it was a Max save, which unfortunately doesn't help us very much. But it was a good game. As good a game as sort of flavored stun can get. I actually kind of like the True Draco cards and a lot of how they're designed, but unfortunately, I'm not even like saying that, oh, he as a player should have played them differently. They, as a deck, lend themselves quite nicely to the playstyle of stun. It is the natural progression of the deck to play these sort of floodgatey cards, so it's not like that's how you play the deck, and I get that. And I like the deck. I like True Draco, and if I were to play True Draco, I would likely play some of these same cards. So All of that considered, it was definitely a very fun match. I really thought we had it in the bag at the beginning. I thought with the charge and the Darios wiping out all of those resources, I thought we were in with a really solid chance of winning. But Masterpiece coming out there on turn, what was it, turn 5, just cooked us. It is what it is. Next game. Alrighty, now this one is going to be a little bit peculiar. We're going to go for Proving Grounds here. We got double Proving Grounds in hand, which is good because we want to get Giselle plus any other Gladiator beast in general. We're going to go Rotari here. It doesn't really matter which we choose. Probably would have been better to go for a level 5 or higher because of our Tamer, but you know, live and learn. We're going to use Rescue Cat to summon a double Giselle. Same thing we do here. The combo really is rather linear. Darios going to bring back the Giselle. Giselle then going to search our deck for Gladiator. Rejection then going to be activated. Now we're going to link our 2 monsters off into the test panther here. And this is where we get hit with a very unfortunate Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre actually really hurts right here because we now can't use Test Panther to trigger Rejection to get our Tamer out onto the field. So we're going to have to think on our feet a little bit. We're going to go for Giselle, summoning out it and the Rotari then. We're going to remove that Ghost Ogre from his graveyard. He could be playing, you know, Bestials or Branded or something. So one last resource in his graveyard may be useful to us. We're going to go for SP Little Knight. We're going to keep our board really simple here. We're going to shuffle back 5 and we're going to go into our Claudius. So I'm looking at Claudius, I'm looking at SP, I'm looking at the protection of all these trap cards, and I'm thinking that should be enough, right? That's fine. So let's see what it is our opponent has in store for us. 5 cards in hand, and I'm going to open up with Harpy's Feather Duster, followed by Droplet. Dropping the red reboot from the hand. Now we're going to respond to that because he sent a spell and a trap. He did not send a monster, meaning we are going to jump off the field with the SP Little Knight and the Claudius. So he is wiping out our board. But if we manage to survive the turn, we do have the clapback. Going to go for Pydra here. Pydra grabbing the Kaiman. We're going to allow the Pydra to resolve because he's going to go into the battle phase. 17 to the phase, activating the Kaiman, and the Kaiman is our Ash target because that's going to have the most possible profound impact on him. So negating the Kaiman puts him in a position where he is now unable to push for lethal. He had to spend all of his gas dealing with our board, and now our monsters come back to the field, and it's time for him to get counter beat down. We're going to go into the battle phase, taking out the Pydra, and then he surrenders. And why did he surrender? Because we have lethal damage on board. That's right. Even though we didn't have 8,000 attack points in total, what we did have was 2 battle phases. So we would have been able to deal about 50, just around 5,000 damage directly here in the first battle phase, and then in the second battle phase we would have very easily been able to finish him off. So a little bit of poetic justice there. The counter OTK against Tempai. He had to spend all his gas trying to deal with us, and he fell to a single Ash Blossom because he did not have the resources left to play through it. Quick one, easy one, last replay. Alrighty, so we're going to get into our next one now. Again, Proving Grounds off rip. We're going to grab our Giselle from the deck. Giselle really the only card that does anything in hand. We're going to summon the double Giselle from our deck. We're going to special out the Test Bird just so it's on the field for later. We're going to go into Darios, and we're going to go through sort of a very similar line to what we were doing before. Darios is going to bring back the Giselle. Giselle then going to activate the search for rejection. Activating the rejection makes us untargetable. Now we're going to go link into, I believe, the Test Panther here. There you go. Test Panther gets searching. Gonna grab us Comeback. Comeback then going to be activated to bring back the Darios. Then we're going to go Test Panther, shuffling back the Darios, the special summon a monster from deck. We're going to summon Noxious then, and Rejection, both activating. Rejection going to activate the special summon out the Vespasius from the deck, and then Noxious is going to mill the Atriox. Now we're going to shuffle 2 back to go into the Tamer. Tamer then going to activate to summon the Domitianus. So Domitianus is effectively a really powerful boss monster here. We're going to shuffle 2 cards back. We're going to, tribute the Burr, shuffle a card back, summon out Darius and the Vespasius. Darius then going to bring back the Atriox. Atriox is going to mill Augustus. And again, we're just sort of getting as many names into the graveyard as we possibly can in this early stage. We're going to go for another copy of Darios before shuffling back the Darios and the names in the graveyard to bring out the Claudius. We wanted to shuffle back the Darios on our field because we needed to have an empty slot so that Claudius could summon Geyseras out to the field. So a lot of that last part was just getting names together. But now we're in a really solid spot. They're going to go for Lebellion. Lebellion then going to grab the Saronir, so that's a very good indication that our opponent is playing Branded. They're going to go for Allure of Darkness. Allure of Darkness, grab 2, banish Saronir. We now have 0 information, other than the fact he's going to go for Albion, the Shrouded Dragon, sending Retribution to draw 1. Alibur, the Jester of Despia, grabbing Branded and High Spirits, which is a really common play recently. Then into the Super Poly, getting rid of our Claudius, but leaving Domitianus on the field, which means no Geysirus, but Geysirus luckily is not the largest threat into Branded in general. So they're going to go Retribution, banishing himself to grab themselves the Brand Fusion, of course. Now they're going to go Quiritis, which does nothing. Saronir then going to try and banish our Claudius from the graveyard to summon itself out to the field, tributing itself so they could go for the Bestial Lebellion. We allow Lebellion to resolve its effect before going for Gladiator Beast Charge to wipe it and the Branded Lost out for good. Now they're going to go Brand Fusion, and we don't mind the Brand Fusion as much here, but he's going to be using the Quiritis and the Fallen of Albaz to go directly into Mirror Jade to try and play around our Domitianus. Now they've also got Branded in White. Now, Mirror Jade by itself we could have handled, but Mirror Jade followed up by Branded in White going into an additional copy of Lebellion is actually a pretty major threat, because if we allow this Lebellion to resolve, it's going to end up summoning out something like the Dragostapelia, which is going to further put pressure on Domitianus and ultimately resolve in our board being annihilated. So we are going to have to trade here. Chariot going to negate the Mirror Jade, destroying it. Domitianus going to negate the Lebellion, which may not seem like a big deal, but now we don't have a monster negate for the Mirror Jade's end phase effect, which is a massive problem, because at the end phase our board disappears, and this is just main phase free to these people. You know the vibes. They're going to start playing in the end phase like it's just another part of their turn. So they're going to grab back the Fallen of Albaz and passing back to us. So not as bad as the first Branded player, but we are in a position where we have virtually 0 resources, and that's something that this deck doesn't play especially nice with. We don't have a lot of ways of bouncing back very effectively. The Claudius is a nice improvement in that regard, because if you just happen to have enough names engraved, you can very easily summon out a powerful boss monster. That's why we run 2 copies of it. But 5 names is pushing the boundaries of a reasonable ask. So you're not always going to have those names available. They're going to go Branded and High Spirits here. We are going to speed this up a little bit. Guiding Quem, bringing back the Mirror Jade. Albion going to send a card, drawing 1. I decided we're going to take these hits. I'm going to see if we can possibly top deck a Miracle. I don't think there's a single card in my deck that saves me from this situation because of the Mirror Jade. But we'll draw 1 last card. And it was Atriox, which does nothing. So it was probably not worth the extra time. Like I said, I don't think there was a single card in my deck that I could have drawn that would have saved me in that spot, but I'm a believer, right? Anyways, let's get into the deck list, and I'll sort of walk you through the build and some of the really good points about the decks, and maybe some of the things and weaknesses you need to consider if you were going to pick it up for yourself. Now, this is the deck. So relatively straightforward build. I tried to build it in a way that allowed the incorporation of at least a little bit of extra non-engine. But what we'll do is I'll strip the non-engine from the list first, and we'll talk about the list and how it's built and why it's built this way. So of course we got our Maxi package, the Maxi, the Ashes, the Cult Buys. We're not running Cross out in this build because it's not impactful enough in this deck, and we kind of need as much impact as we can get. But we did have the triple Imperm for a nice little balance between going first and second in terms of utility. And that's pretty much it. So we got 10 on-engine cards there to play with. Not as much as you would like, especially in a format like this. But again, you're going to understand why we don't have more. So, the main deck. In terms of there's a lot of really powerful cards in this deck. Justel being one of the new ones. Justel basically can special summon itself and another Gladiator Beast from the hand, and when it's summoned via the effect of a Gladiator Beast, just search your deck for a Gladiator Beast spell or trap. This card is amazing, right? Gladiator Beast Proving Ground. It's Rhoda, right? Not once per turn, search any level 4 or lower. Crazy. Gladiator Beast Comeback. Not once per turn, special summon a monster from graveyard or hand, and it becomes impervious to battle destruction. Pretty fucking dope. We got the Flavian. Flavian, discard a card, search a Gladiator Beast. Automatically a really good field spell, but during the end phase, you also get to play a trap card from your deck to the field. really good. It also got some battlefield protection. During your opponent's turn, if your opponent declares an attack, you can special summon a Gladiator Beast from your deck that becomes impervious to destruction. All of these cards are crazy. They're really, really good. Even some of the older ones, like Rejection, being able to special summon from the deck while also having some targeting protection. And then you've got your trap cards, which have always been pretty impactful. And the deck has a lot of tools that, if you were to look at these cards in the context of virtually any other deck, you would think that this deck's fucking broken, man. The problem is that with all of these amazing tools, what the deck feels to have is cards that can use them, right? All of our actual main deck Gladiator Beasts outside of Justel are really, really lackluster. So we're playing one copy of Andal. We're playing him for a very specific reason, which we'll get to. Ritari's kind of neat. He banishes a monster from your opponent's card from your opponent's graveyard, which is kind of neat. Darius brings a monster back from the graveyard. Darius is definitely one of the better ones, for sure. Atriox and Noxious both kind of do the same thing. Whenever they're summoned, they send a Gladiator Beast from deck to graveyard, with Atriox copying its name and level, and Noxious just milling it. So they're both good ways of getting extra cards to grave. We've got Vespasius, which just kind of boosts attack points, and Augustus, which will summon a monster from hand. So some of these cards are decent, right? Darius is decent. Augustus is okay. Vespasius, it's kind of mid. Ritari is pretty lackluster. Andal's a vanilla. So like you see how, but we can't take them out is the problem. So for the deck to function, you need to have a certain amount of Gladiator Beast names. If you don't have enough names, then your combos kind of fall apart, because your combos rely almost entirely upon 3 primary avenues of approach. Avenue number 1 is Rescue Cat. Rescue Cat being able to summon 2 copies of Justel from the deck to get your combo going. You saw that combo time and again during the gameplay. That is the main way of getting started with this deck. Rescue Cat is goated, but Rescue Cat dies to any hand trap. Imperm, fucking Ash, Veeler, anything will stop Rescue Cat, which means that while it is a powerful card, it is incredibly susceptible to interruption. Justel is kind of your second way of getting into plays, but it's not a 1-card play. You would need it plus an additional Gladiator Beast monster, and that would be much, much easier to accomplish. It is not difficult to accomplish, but it would be much more rewarding if any of the other Gladiator Beast monsters would really take advantage of the fact that they're being special summoned from hand off of the effect of a Gladiator Beast. Again, Darius is kind of neat, especially if you've already attempted to make plays, but the rest of them don't really do much of anything, right? And that's a big problem, because Justel is such an amazing enabler. All it's missing is a partner, and god, the power of this deck would skyrocket if it had that. Where was I? And the other way of looking at it is Test Bear, which is, again, for him to be like a sole method of playing, he kind of has to be your normal summon, which sucks. And while yes, he has an ability that allows you to special summon him from hand, as long as you control a Gladiator Beast that was summoned from deck or extra deck, which doesn't sound like that tight of a restriction, but usually if you've gotten to the point where you control a Gladiator Beast that was summoned from deck or extra deck, at least a couple of your cards have resolved, which means that you're kind of already going, right? So Tesper is, while technically a starter and can be used as a starter, number 1, it's not a 1-card starter because he needs to have, again, at least one of a Gladiator Beast in hand. If you have a Gladiator Beast to shuffle back in hand, then Testbear is effectively just an additional copy of Rescue Cat, which is really good. It's just a little bit worse because you have to have an additional copy. And his, like, if you were to special summon him using his effect and then use it, while yes, incredibly powerful, great extender, not a starter, doesn't really help you get started, and definitely a little bit win more in a lot of those positions. So Testbear is definitely mixed. Worst case scenario, it's a slightly worse version of Rescue Cat. And Rescue Cat is the best card in your main deck, so having a card that's a slightly worse version of the best card in your deck is still a pretty damn good card. But I don't think it's as broken as everybody is saying it is. It's really good, but it's its usage is what sort of limits it being broken. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, the only cards that I suppose you're looking at this list I'm thinking about is the Primate Roar and the Andal. So Primate Roar, it doesn't take a genius to work out, is here to summon the Andal. Andal being a summon from deck, it's a lot like Unexpected Die, except we also have like a bonus effect here, which is nice. And the Andal ends up getting shuffled back into your deck a lot because of Claudius, which means you can recycle it, which means the additional copies of Primate Roar usually aren't dead, which is nice. So it is nice. I would be a liar if I said it's come up very often. And the only reason we're even doing it is because, again, the deck just lacks gas. Like, it really is lacking just that oomph to get started. Like I said, if this deck had literally one more good main deck monster, I would drop the Primate Roars and the Andal in a heartbeat. If we had a decent partner to go with Justel for the main deck, 100%. But right now, because the deck is so slow, for lack of a better term, and because it has like such serious choke points, especially right at the beginning of its combo, man, you kind of need anything you can get your hands on. The Primate Roar Andal is an idea I'm testing out right now. I've seen a couple of other people playing it with mixed levels of success, so I'm just testing it. So far, it's been okay. Would I recommend doing it? I don't know. If you have them, great. But like, I mean, they're SRs. You might as well try it. But it really is just to help compensate for the lack of gas. You can absolutely just put 4 extra hand traps in here and just, again, pray that the 4 extra hand traps will just mean that you're relying more heavily on your existing starters, but hopefully you just win more with them with the extra hand traps. But yeah, take with that what you will. So that's pretty much it. And then, yeah, we got the 1 charge and the 1 war chariot. Pretty straightforward stuff. So yeah, main deck, really not a lot of complicated stuff going on. It's pretty straightforward. But hopefully that can make sense in terms of what I was thinking when I was building it. In terms of the extra, we're playing a lot of doubles in our extra deck, and for good reason. We got the one of Darios, which is our primary sort of interruption off of Claudius. This card's incredible. Heraclinos is a card that's really good. It's a spell trap negate. It's not once per turn. You have to discard its cost, but it's a lot like Dark Paladin in that as long as you have cards to discard, you can just continuously discard and continuously negate cards. So really good in that way. The Gladiator Beast Tamer Editor. You want multiple copies of this. I can't really remember a time I would in my second copy. I know you can if you like really go balls to the wall, and I dare say it's probably going to be pretty good for the follow-up. So the thing about Tamer Editor is that unlike the rest of these cards, you cannot shuffle it back into your deck to summon Claudius because this card cannot be used as fusion material as part of its effect. Which means if you want to use it multiple times, you kind of have to have multiple copies. It's not like Darios or Heraclinos, where if you use them and they get dealt with, you can shuffle them back for your second copy of Claudius alongside your original copy of Claudius and just continue the loop, continue the cycle, if you will. It's not like that. 2 copies of Domitanius. I have not summoned the second copy. You could definitely not play the second copy if you want to limit how many URs you have to craft for this deck. You could definitely only play one of this if you wanted to. I do see a lot of people only playing 1 copy of Claudius, and I'm naturally somewhat opposed to that because a second copy of Claudius by itself dramatically improves the grind game of your deck. Because you can shuffle back the first copy to summon the second copy and loop it that way. It's like the Thunder Dragon Titan loop. And whenever I see an opportunity to do something like that, I really do quite like the security of knowing that I have a game plan indefinitely. Like, no matter what happens, unless I really get fucked up or my opponent disrupts that loop, I take solace in knowing that I forever have a game plan or something I can build towards, so that when turn 5 and turn 7 hits, I'm not sitting here spinning my wheels for no reason. Dragassi's just because really it's not that great of a card, but it's a winged beast, which is useful in some variants of the deck that want to take advantage of the Apex Avian with these some more cards, which is pretty neat. I was originally playing that, and I might go back to it because it's kind of cool, but right now I'm not. But in general, yeah, it's just another Gladiator Beast name, and the Link 2s are good ways of putting monsters into the graveyard, as well as like just increasing the number of names on field and grave for your Claudius. Double Test Panther. It's not a Gladiator Beast card. It cannot be shuffled back for Claudius, and it is a really powerful card. I do admittedly seldomly go into the second copy, but I think it's definitely worth it. SP Little Knight, for obvious reasons. Double Darios. Darios, I probably would use 2 of more often than the others. I think the 2 of Darios is more important than the 2 of Panther or any of these other 2 ofs, to be perfectly honest. I would regularly use 2 copies of Darios, but on that same token, Darios is one of those cards you can reshuffle and recycle with Claudius. I do think the second copy is definitely worth it, though. If you were to ask me to cut one of the Test Panthers or one of the Darios, I would definitely cut a Test Panther before I would cut a Darios, for sure. And then Shurek, which I haven't summoned, but in theory sounds cool, and maybe one day I'll summon it, we'll see. But ultimately, that's the list. It's really not that complicated. There's not that many different combo routes, so it's relatively easy enough to learn and pick up. Just start the cards, watch the gameplay. We kind of did all of the primary combos and made all of the primary plays. There's not a lot of wiggle room until the deck gets at least one more good main deck monster. So when that day comes, maybe the deck will be a little bit more complex and a little bit more versatile. But for now, you're a one-trick pony. But that trick is pretty fucking good. So if you want to pick this deck up and go ahead and play it, by all means. If you want to catch more videos from us, make sure you click the links above, one of which will be our most recent post, and the other one is the one YouTube thinks is best for you. So give one of those a watch up next. Subscribe if you haven't, like the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.